Hey, today we've got another great story. This lady has gone from being a foster child, becoming a nurse, and then becoming a medical salesperson and becoming the top medical salesperson, brushing up against the seven-figure club. I think this story is great because it takes away a lot of the limiting beliefs that a lot of us have about learning new things, approaching different types of people all over the country, being able to be put into new situations and excel every time. She's been kind of positioned as the fixer at her company, where she goes into a territory and then builds it up from scratch where other people have failed. So I think this story is great on a lot of levels. I'll sum it up at the end. Before we get into it, if I could ask everybody a favor, if you enjoy the podcast, when you're on LinkedIn or you happen to watch it on YouTube, could you just give it a thumbs up, a little comment, a little share? That would help me get rid of this cough. It also help get the word out about the podcast. Reviews are nice, and telling a friend is even better. But when you do it socially, it really helps me because it gets visibility to your followers. And hopefully some of them are salespeople and get some value out of this. Also, check out our friends over at CoVideo. CoVideo is the video email solution. They're just cooking. They're coming up with great content, and we're all doing video today. So even if you don't believe in video email, go check out their content, see how it works. They have general content on using video. I had them on the show a couple of weeks ago. You can check out that episode as well. And also, are you checking out the B2B Revenue Leadership Show? I had a great episode drop last week on cognitive biases, why people think the way they think and why they're missing what should be obvious, but they have confirmation bias. And I'll sum up the episode at the end and give everybody an update on the courses. If you're in the courses, please make sure you're checking out the most recent one-on-ones as well as the office hours. The office hours is just cooking this year with the number of students in it. There's a lot of collaboration, a lot of help. And even this week, we had the exact persona that several of the people are trying to connect with. And we could talk through what they care about. What are they willing to talk about? How do you build an organic conversation with them? So if you're in the courses, make sure you're checking them out. If you're curious, go to b2brevenue.com. Let's get started with the interview. Hey, Sherry, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Well, hi, thanks for having me. My name is Sherry Cromer. I am a professional sales rep in the medical device and implantable device field. Have 3 President's Club awards that I earned and 5 different territories. So about my career, I had a really unique calling card where I'm an opener. What that means is the companies have moved me to territories in different states to clean up a territory, fix a neglected territory, if something was scorched earth, and very high knowledge-based sales, defibrillators, pacemakers, primarily for 17 years. And I never knew I would be doing that and doing it so well. And I just wanted to talk about that.
So you're applying your MD to this?
MD? I'm not an MD.
I'm joking. Well, You would think that. How did you go from, what were you doing before this? I'm sure it was right out of school?
So, no, I actually am one of very few females in my field, and I came out of nursing. And when they hired me, they said, look, we're taking a risk on you because nurses eat their young. They do not make very good salespeople. Well, you're just out of the box or whatever. So I was an RN in cardiac and electrophysiology. So very nerdy type field. It's electricity versus the plumbing that some cardiologists do the plumbing.
Yeah.
So
was it easy to learn the medical side, the technical side of the products, given that background?
It still took me 2 years, and I am one of the few people that even have a certification in it. So the certification is, the sanctioning body is the Heart Rhythm Society. Now it's a 5-hour exam. Yeah, it was very difficult. 2 years, I studied on my own at night while I was an
Oh.
RN in a practice. Yes.
Now, I would think nurses would make great salespeople.
This is just something they told me that they don't hire nurses.
Not that I
Yeah.
know any nurses who are salespeople. Because I think it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
different motivation, right? Because nursing, and even it's, helping and healing versus conversing.
Yeah, it's a technical sell, and there's a little bit of a line that's drawn, especially in academic circles, where you don't associate with salespeople. Even at if they're sponsoring an event, you don't allow them to put anything in the room, a pen. There's in academic settings, they don't want the vendors; they want them to generically in the background.
Yeah.
So there's like a dislike for vendors, actually. But in this particular implantable device business, you are really ball and chain and married to your customers where you're in surgery with them 8, 10, 12 hours a day.
Wow.
And they depend on you to do a lot of things, even when they're not around, like see their patients in the emergency room and call them with reports and suggestions on how to program the device. So it's a lot of trust that's, given.
Wow.
So
And
I would think nurses did well like you said, I would think nurses would do well in that arena too, but they don't.
yeah, you think they'd have the empathy, the being able to read nonverbal signals, communication
Yes.
skills, persuasion skills to get people to do something that they don't want to do.
Right. Well, N of one, I think I have proven them wrong. So, yeah.
Yeah. And how was that first year?
I was promoted twice in the first year, and it just turned out to be a Cinderella story career. But that was a very insightful manager.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what were you doing differently?
When I got into the industry in '99 in Northeast Tennessee, lots of what they called rednecks. They won't work with women up there. This is what I was told. Just, do the best you can. Well, I gained the trust of those, what they called redneck doctors. And I don't really agree with that, but that's what they called them. And took 85% market share within 4 years. I was the market leader for my company in the defibrillator market.
How'd you do that? Was that something that just came natural? You didn't think about it? You just did it? Or
I think what my customers would tell my boss was that they do business with me. One, technically I know what I'm doing, and I'm the only rep they would let see their patients in the ER without them there and make changes. Number two, my enthusiasm. They would say it's her enthusiasm. And I looked that word up and it said God within or something like that. When you break that word up, I thought that was interesting. I'm not a super religious person or anything, but I do think that, again, people want to do as much as business as they can with people they like and as little as they have to. So in any market you're in, it's really about who am I competing against? There were two other vendors, Medtronic and I forget, St. Jude Medical. At that time I was with Guidant, and you just have to beat the other guy. Be better than the other guy. And not two other guys. It doesn't have to be the whole company, right?
right.
Yeah.
And how'd you do that? Did the product have a particular lockout, or was it service?
The products are very similar. In fact, most physicians would say they're identical, even though they have bells and whistles, which we try as salespeople to sell. But it wasn't that. It was just personality and perseverance. I was told that I gained a lot of respect for not giving up. 18 months in one case to get someone to use me. When I say use me, use my product and have me in the surgery, supporting the implant of the case, which is a very intimate process, measuring things, and you're part of the surgery. Telling the physician, oh no, it's not in a good place. My readings are, the impedance is wrong. We need to move it into a different part of the heart, and things like that. So how did I do it? Technically, I had the background. I was an expert already in pacemakers, but not in selling. And they actually liked that I wasn't a sales rep for 9 months. So when they would call me in, the threshold was lowered. It's just Sherry. She's not going to sell us anything.
Yeah.
But guess what? The whole time I was selling myself.
Right. And how did you get those meetings? Because I'm sure these people don't have a lot of free time.
That's very tricky. So in the pacemaker world, you don't have to so much get meetings. When a patient shows up that has your pacemaker, they call you to come check it in their office. Most of the time, they don't really see you. You go check it, leave a report. If they like you, they may have you come back to their office and chat with them a minute or two. I got access like that, but I utilized that access to show my skill set and personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that enthusiasm they liked. What, are they dry? Those doctors, dry people?
Yeah, electrophysiologists are so different than plumbers, interventionists. Yeah.
They're not the party crowd.
Oh no, they're the we would call them propeller heads. They would have they're very much brainiacs, nerds, and definitely different. Mm-hmm.
And what did they like to talk about? Was it the product itself? Was it the industry? Was it the direction?
By and large, 90% of my business came from the nerdiest, smartest guys, and they did want just someone to give them good service, and even recommend another product if your brand is buy based off of personality and friendships versus the electrophysiologist.
Because they're probably much better compensated. Is that true, or does it matter?
They're both I've opened 5 territories. Remember, I'm an opener. Turnaround agent or whatever. It's different in each market, but physicians make the choice on the brand of the pacemaker. And if it happens to be on contract at the hospital, they can use it. Even back when I started in 99, that didn't even matter. If it wasn't on contract, they would still say, hey, this is the best product for the patient, and fill out a form and put it in. Nowadays, things are done at a very high level and, GPO level, group purchasing, usually 2 vendors or 1 out of the 4. For 3-year contracts. So in that situation, it's a whole new world since when I started in 99.
Yeah. And why do you like being an opener? Because I'd find that it's hard starting over, right?
It is very hard starting over. I have a unique skill set that I think may have come from being a foster kid, because I started over all the time, sometimes 6 times in 1 year in a school, 6 different schools.
Wow.
Or I just had that skill. I'm not really sure, but I make friends pretty quickly. And I'm a pretty genuine person. There's not an agenda. If there is, I let you know about it, but it is hard to answer your question. People would tell you you're crazy. You could have retired off of that first, Northeast Tennessee. You could still be there, because it's so difficult to get a physician to change a habit. They're not just switching brands. It's a switching cost. The cost of switching the brand is their nurses are now mad at them because they need a new machine to check that pacemaker, a different computer, like a Dell to a Mac. And they've already learned. It is very difficult to learn. I know from being a nurse, it took me a long time to learn each. I had 5 brands at the time I started. Intermedics was one of them, and they're no longer. It's a fun little device. But I'll stay on track. It is very difficult to be an opener, but it pays the most money. Little did I know that was going to be kind of the part of it, but I'm uniquely built for it. And someone has to do it as well. And what they look at me as is Peyton Manning. They say, hey, I'm going to give you the football. We know it's going to get in the end zone. We don't even have to watch. Hey, the doctors are over there, And I have this repeatable success story in 3 different industries, actually, not just pacing. Yeah.
And so do you trace this back to your childhood? That kind of going from school to school and constant change and...
Absolutely trace it to my childhood. I think the nature versus nurture thing is real. We have a set probably, happiness quotient. I'm a pretty happy person against all odds. Had experienced homelessness as a child. So all this, what it does, it gives me a gratitude that's so real. Sometimes I go, how in the world? I've made almost $1 million many years. I mean, it's pretty close. Out of my 17-year pacing career, there was about 3 of us really close. And I'm like, how did I come this far? Like, the gratitude I have is palpable.
Yeah.
Even to get a meeting with you, I'm very happy to be here. So,
this is one of the highlights of your career.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I hope I can help someone, but I think gratitude determines your latitude for real, like that little quote we see sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, because it really is the kind of the trigger to positivity. Because unless you're grateful, you can't really be positive. Correct. And the easiest way to become positive and optimistic is be grateful what you have instead of whining about what you don't have and what you're up against.
Oh, absolutely. And it reminds me of this Toyota Land Cruiser we bought from a Nigerian sales rep who I would buy everything from this guy if I could find him. We always have 3 Land Cruisers. I don't know why. We're rotating them. And I don't know where the sales rep is, but he was so grateful for everything. And I just thought, well, where did he come from? His story must have been really something. I don't have that story, but I feel like I have a endless wealth of gratitude just from where I did come from. And it's not a victim mentality.
And that's the distinction, right? Because people tend to pick one or the other, the gratitude or the victim. And the victim makes you feel okay right now. It's like sugar. It feels good then you get a crash. Like it doesn't help you.
No, and I read something once about the martyr. The person that plays the martyr always has the highest moral ground, and so they like playing it, but it's just not healthy.
Right, and I'm sure you've seen those reps that have every excuse in the world why they aren't successful, because it's really hard.
Yes.
I can't imagine anyone harder to sell than to a doctor.
Exactly, and an administrator and all the gatekeepers that prevent you from even getting to the physician, and there's dozens.
Right. And they're bombarded because there's new products coming out all the time. There's new reps. There's new versions of things. Everybody wants their time and their attention, yet they get paid, per job or per hour. Right. And they're even with this.
They're tough customers.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about luck a little bit because I'm not ashamed to say I have gotten some really lucky breaks, but do you really believe in luck, or is it just preparing yourself to when those opportunities arise? I think it's a combination. I will say that luck has played a little bit, in the last
there clearly is, because, I've seen so many sales reps that are in like retail.
Okay.
But if I knew they were in B2B or, medical sales, they'd make 10 times as much.
Yes.
Right?
An opportunity.
Like your Land Cruiser guy, he can't make $1 million a year.
No.
Right. It's just the industry. So, if somebody picked him, like I had a boss who was a waiter, and our manager hired him like a couple years early. Yeah. Because he had a nice personality. He was inquisitive. He was prompt. He was reading what they wanted.
Okay.
And the manager said, you ever thought of getting into sales? Now, you can't tell me that's not luck at some kind, right?
Yes. Met the right guy.
Right. He makes the most out of it, but we all get these little breaks, good breaks and bad breaks, right? If you believe in bad luck, you got to believe in good luck.
That's so true. You got to roll with the punches. Yeah.
Right.
Oh gosh. Yeah. We've had such bad ones, losing a contract, those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's things we control and there's things that we influence and things we don't control at all. Right. And
speaking of things you don't control, having bad bosses is something I've experienced a little bit of. I've had probably 10 bosses in my career, 20-year career. Never been asked to be the boss because there's no women in this field, primarily in leadership, about 4% women. So it's not the culture for that. I certainly could mentor, and I have mentored people, over 100 actually. Yeah. But bad bosses have run me off from companies. The last one, actually.
I think it's the number one thing, more than the product or the market or the territory. The number one thing I hear is bad managers, bad leaders. Mm-hmm. All they care about is activity or something that doesn't matter.
Or worse, they give resources to the underperformers who are people that they like and feel like more comfortable with. I've had a boss, several, that only felt comfortable with like the B and C players, but the A players, the MVPs like myself and some of my peers that were President's Club performers, they just didn't feel comfortable with them and they withheld resources. So there was this philosophy of one, you either feed the chickens and starve the eagles, or you feed the eagles and starve the chickens. But the ones who don't feed those eagles, they lose the eagles. And 3 of us left Medtronic within a short period of time, and they've never recovered to this day in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Never.
And I think managers have this belief that, everybody should be performing equally. That's not how people are.
No.
Some people are eagles. Some people are chickens that want to become eagles, and some people are happy being chickens, right?
Yeah, exactly. But managers need to learn to manage MVPs because we like attention and kudos, like little children as well. Hey, you did a good job. It does go a long way. We're not any different than a human. I mean, we like recognition, and don't withhold it.
And what always bothered me and what I've seen bother other people is, January 1st, you get a new comp plan, a new territory.
Yes.
And you go from high commission rate to low commission rate. Mm-hmm. The territory is half as big, the quota is twice as big.
Yes.
And clearly the chicken got the same quota in the same territory.
Yeah. And you just do what you can.
And how much of this do you believe is mindset versus skill set?
Oh, definitely mindset is key. It's been one of the biggest things that's helped me, just from the point of view of my customers. When I ask them, what made you choose me after I called on you for 12 months? And it's mindset, it's enthusiasm. I can't remember another quote, but basically it was my attitude. Mindset's everything. You can't act like you have a chip on your shoulder. People sense it. It's very palpable. Some people sense it more than others, and they will avoid you, like, oil and vinegar. Yeah. You just got to do something, meditate, get that off of you. If painting helps you, go refinish some furniture and then go see the toughest customer. Like, do something, get you in that Zen mode. And I'll see my toughest customers after I have a huge win, because I know I'm in the best mood. And if they shoot me down, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
That's my
plan. And
how
do you keep yourself up?
Yeah. How do I?
Yeah. Exercise.
Well, that's one way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I have had some orthopedic challenges just from lifting weights when I was younger too. I overdid it and competed and things. So I'm kind of down to just like a Peloton. And then I do some nootropics, like just L-tyrosine, and I use some smart vitamins. They're called Brain Stacks. The company's called Brain Stacks. I love them. I mean, it's really incredible. And then, so the exercise isn't as much as I'd like, but it definitely is part of it. Yeah.
Any routines that you have? Is there, a morning like reading list or patterns that you go through?
Yes, I definitely am an Audible junkie. I'm podcast. I like your podcast. I like Dave Asprey's Bulletproof Radio, which is, all about trying to keep your diet, kind of higher protein and fat, a little bit keto. I don't do all keto, but I think that's an incredible way to fuel your brain, with less carbs and less fluctuations in your energy. So you spend your energy throughout the day like money in a bank. You got to be very careful.
Yeah. And how would you compare yourself to the chickens? When can you talk to somebody and say that's an eagle or that's a chicken?
I can relate because I started out, as a chicken. I may have been like underneath, I was an eagle. I didn't even really know it. I got an opportunity. I got really lucky. The guy that hired a girl, remember it was all men. He hired a redhead, a blonde, and a brunette. And he said he thought he was like Charlie's Angels. What was that guy, Boz? And I ended up being the only one that really worked out. But it was just so many people interviewed for this opening, and I got an internal referral. I was a nurse in a cardiac practice. Getting into pacing was like, a lot of people go to school for that. There's a school called the Pacemaker School in Greenville, South Carolina. It's a 40-year-old school. Some people go to school for that, and they have 100% job placement, by the way. But circle back to the question, because I got off track for a minute, if you will.
Yeah. How did you find, when you talk to somebody, how do you determine, or do you get a sense of if they're an eagle or a chicken?
Oh, absolutely. This is pretty much immediate. I'm a very intuitive person, I think, but it's okay. You can become an eagle, with some coaching and mentoring. You might be a natural, like I think I am. I haven't had a lot of mentoring. I've mentored people, and it wasn't until I was in my career 15 years that someone I admire says, "Who is your mentor?" And I said, "I didn't get that memo. I didn't know I needed one, but I said, it's you, I guess," I told the person. But the chickens are definitely out there, and I don't know how I recognize them. I think it's probably an attitude, like a sand shark versus a great white kind of thing, Yeah.
I think, from the language, either it's victim or responsibility, because if they don't take personal responsibility, you just know it's not going to work out.
Oh, if they don't keep their promises, I always wait for that email. I'll say, hey, I won't ask them for an email, but if I give someone something of value, whether it's my time, I would expect an email or a text, within a short period of time to say, thank you. That's the best practice, right? Definitely handwritten notes are one thing I still do, and I send them in the mail. So,
it's surprising how effective that still is.
Absolutely. That means to get it. I don't get them. I give them. I wish I could get one.
And your enthusiasm, did you always have this?
Yes, I think. Yeah, I think it's a set point. I can't remember a time I didn't. Yeah. Even when I wrecked my moped and was in the hospital and having surgery, the surgeon commented before he released me, he said, "You're just such a happy teenager." See you soon. He said something like the happy teenager. You're my happy teenager or something like that.
Yeah.
The way he said it, though, I think my set point has been higher.
Yeah. And how about as far as competitiveness? You lifted weights and you did that competitively. Is that true?
Yes. Yes. I, as an amateur, but fiercely competitive in my work and in my mind, and mostly for work. I mean, I don't compete against my sisters and siblings for anything. It's just, it's off the scale. I can't rest. Yeah. And it's actually sick. It's a sickness.
Well, I found it to be a big driver, right? Because anytime I'm down, I don't need a cup of coffee. I just need to look at an image of my competitor and what they're doing. And it's like,
oh yeah.
It just gets my blood boiling.
Your main customer. You see them walking in the cafeteria. My blood boil. Yeah, you've got that too, and you got to harness it. It's a good thing. Like some anxiety is good to have. It makes you study for a test. There's certain anxieties you're supposed to have, not full blown. And it's not always a happy day in the neighborhood like Mr. Rogers. I mean, the current job with Biotronics selling stents, when no one wants a new stent, we're 20 years late to the market. We're the fourth stent they can choose. And here I am, the number one stent rep in the United States. It wasn't day one. The first year I was like the last place. And then year two, I just came out of nowhere and lapped everyone. And it helped that the number 1 and 2 guys quit as well. But still, I earned where I got, right? Yeah. There were 57. And then by the time I made number 1, there were 52. And I had 5-month stream, January through May. It was a lot of luck, perseverance, and just adjusting my attitude in the mirror every day, driving an hour and a half, 3 hours, sometimes one way to see a customer. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it, because weightlifting kind of has that built into it. It's habitual.
Okay.
Do the reps, even when you don't feel like it.
And you don't see a difference. Yeah.
You don't see a difference for a long time.
Yep.
You can't put more weight on. Why isn't it working? And then there's a breakthrough. That's much like sales.
Yes. And you know what? That's why a lot of people like to hire athletes, because of that one thing you just talked about.
Well, that, and they take coaching. As an athlete, there's a coach. So you take feedback consistently. And in pretty much every performance, whether it's the arts, like your daughter with the piano, yes. Because she's hearing something different than the instructor, right? Agreed. The instructor knows exactly the difference between what it is and what they'd like it to be. And if you can get used to taking that feedback, because at sales, we have to take it from the market, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. Yep.
Then we have to take it from our boss.
Yep. You're hitting on a nerve here. Hey, this being coachable is huge. I forgot that I've been told that I'm surprisingly coachable, even when I've been hired as this phenom that's going to do what I did in my last company. She's going to turn this whole thing around for us. But then I'm so coachable that I had a COO tell me, I can't believe you agreed to role play over and over again and put it on voice memo and send me your sales pitches. He said, that meant so much to me, coming from someone at your status in the industry. I'm like, hey, if I can get better,
Right. And especially in sales, because you might not be doing the same type of call every day. Every day is a little bit different stages, different doctors, and you have to match.
Yes.
And I'm sure doctors in Tennessee are very different than doctors in Texas.
Oh, absolutely. But about those roll calls that COO did with me, I did it happily after a slight adjustment in my attitude. It wasn't immediately yay, but I liked him. I liked his feedback, and I trusted him. Yeah. That's why I did it.
You mentioned being a woman in sales. Now, I'm obviously not a woman.
Yeah.
Not during the day.
You have good skin, though. You have good skin. Yes.
But is it an advantage or a disadvantage, or does?
It's a disadvantage at first for a while, until they realize that you know what you're doing. And guess what? I asked Bob for the article 3 times, and we golfed last Saturday. He still didn't bring it to me. It was in my inbox. I asked you 1 time. And there's little things that just separate you from the pack over and over again. And then it turns, and then it's an advantage that they can't even compete with, Yeah.
Well, that's it, because my mom's a salesperson. The first sales rep I supported was a woman.
Okay.
And I never saw it as a deficit. And then when I started interviewing women, I heard a lot of people saying it was a deficit. And I'm like,
okay, No.
Not being, I can't judge, right? I'm a guy.
Right.
Oh,
and there's so many different guy customers. There's different races and cultures, and it's definitely in San Antonio, Texas. There's some physicians who won't see female reps at all downtown. That's today, in this day and age, they won't see a female, and I don't call on those customers. They're assigned to me, and I have a quota for them, but that's that.
Yeah, and it's sad. I don't know how you work around that, or if you can. Yeah.
Not that one. I don't want to call out the names of these people, but there's sort of an old mafioso attitude in the center of town that is there, and you just hire males, maybe a male assistant if you get a head count for a helper, and you guys do it that way.
Yeah. So what's next on your career checklist?
I have something cooking. It's pretty big. It's pretty big. I don't know who's listening to this or who'll hear this, but I can.
Just between us.
I'll tell. Okay. So I've been headhunted away to do something everyone in my field wants to do right now. The hottest job is no longer pacing. It's selling TAVR, transaortic valves. So heart valves that are put in through the leg, like delivered to a catheter, no cutting open. So, everyone wants to do this job. It's a very high paying, high risk. We didn't even talk about taking risk earlier, but everything's a risk that I did, risk that no one would take in their right mind because I had settled territories. But that's what's cooking is that TAVR position. And I've been verbally offered it 2 or 3 times, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So again, not a leadership role, but I know where my highest point of contribution is, and it's customer facing, and guess what? It pays you more anyway.
Yeah. And risk excites you? Are you a roller coaster person?
It apparently so. I mean, 5 territories. I couldn't tell you. My first boss predicted this. He said, what you did here in East Tennessee, you could replicate that anywhere. If you could do it here, you might become an opener, or however he said it. And I said, oh, I'm not that crazy. And then I did it. Yeah. I still stay in contact with him. He was the best mentor, the best boss I ever had. Yep.
But you sounds like leadership is something you'd like to do, or is it?
I think I can contribute a lot in the leadership role. It would probably be something I would regret if I didn't explore. However, I haven't had the right of refusal because I have been told in many, many times that we can't lose you, and because on the front lines, and we lose a whole hospital system. We can't afford to lose you.
Right. Yeah. And your motivation system would have to kind of change, because if you go from money to building.
However, my husband would tell you, I'm not money motivated. He'll tell you, I don't know what I make. I just go, like the Energizer Bunny.
He manages the money?
I don't know. We got 3 Land Cruisers. They're souped up. Scuba gear.
Keep an eye on that guy.
Yeah. So, I
hide his passport.
Motivates me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's expired. Good one, though. Thank you. But you're right about the motivation changing. I think that's an interesting idea I hadn't thought of, because you go from customer facing, the front line, I'd say weapon. I've been called a frontline weapon. To what? I don't know.
Well, that's it. Then you have to work through people and with people, because I've gone that way, and it's a different world.
Really?
Right? Yeah, because you're not going to hire 8 Jerrys. You're going to have.
That's why
you're going to have a mix.
Yeah. Okay.
And your impulse might be to take over the sales call or take over the territory, and that's hard to hold back. A lot like being a parent, right?
To just not jump in, let them fall a little bit.
Once in a while.
Yeah. I think coaching is, back to your point earlier, is wonderful. Risk-taking, which we didn't talk about a lot, was an innate no fear. I have no fear of that. Because at first, when I was taking these risks, leaving a fully blown up territory, $6 million territory where you're making 10%, leaving it in East Tennessee, starting over in San Antonio, doing it again in Sarasota, Florida, people would be scared to death because there's no safety net. And I just knew I could do it, but I couldn't say no for some reason. I wanted to do it. Yeah. And I've done it 5 times, really 6, if you count the current one, but jury's still out on that one, but still, Yeah.
And I think that kind of mentality or mindset I've seen with like military kids, where they had to every year go to another country, city, state, and they had to rebuild their network of friends. And being a foster child, you had to do it at least that.
Yes.
And I can imagine and that's traumatic that is. That you either...
I don't know. Some people will say, wow, I'm sorry that you went through that. And I'll say, no, those were the best years of my life being in foster care. That was better than the other place, right? So that's actually the way I look at it. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Be a Girl Scout, have gymnastic lessons, so this was like way better. But certainly there was some sadness, but overall it's a silver lining. And the risk-taking attitude is probably from that. But back to what I was going to say, it's also from not having anything to lose. The very first time I think I left Atlanta and went to Northeast Tennessee, I really had nothing to lose. And then it set this, mindset that I did that once, I could do it again. But the next time I had something to lose. Every time I had something to lose, and I still did it.
Yeah, starting over. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this has been a fun conversation. Where can people go to follow you?
So I have, I'm on LinkedIn, Sherry Cromer, and it's Cromer, Cromer, and Biotronic is my employer. And then people follow me for my hair. I have a hair Instagram site for my natural curly hair, believe it or not, and it's Curls Rules, Frizzed Rules. Anyway, since you asked.
What I love there is you hear such a great mindset, such determination, such competitiveness and resilience. We were talking after the interview about growing up a foster child, and it's kind of heartbreaking in a way. And when those formative years that you don't have, the basic support system of parenting can be so hard. And then trying to go out in the real world and build a career. And I think a lot of us kind of get stuck in these limiting beliefs about what we can do. And I've kind of boiled it down to personal responsibility. Now, that can sound like a platitude, but think of the opposite, personal irresponsibility. With personal irresponsibility, we blame the economy, we blame the politics, we blame our parents, we blame everything outside of us. And the thing is, a lot of times we're right, but the problem is they're not going to change. The only thing that does change and that we have control over is us. So why don't we take that personal responsibility and dig in? And this is kind of what I'm trying to teach in the course is not tactics or just tools or just gimmicks. What I'm trying to teach is a process, a strategy, a mindset so that it all comes together and makes sense. And it is hard to do on our own because our managers in our company, they teach us what worked 20 years ago. They don't teach us what works today. We get on LinkedIn and YouTube, and I'm sorry, but these people clearly have not done it in a long, long time. And most of them did it at one company, in one industry, and they've got their little robotic responses for everything. I have made this my passion in my life. And now the funnest part is helping other people because nobody takes these courses because what they're selling is easy. You should hear in the office hours, some people have really, really hard things to do with really, really hard people. And we work on it. We try and figure it out. We break it down into the little pieces and put a system in place. But if the people have a mental block or think it's impossible, which I typically ran into when I did on-premise consulting, because it wasn't the reps that pulled me in. It was either the CEO, the board, and usually wasn't even the VP of sales. I'd come in and, everyone was pointing at the reps were pointing at the product. The management was pointing at the market and the comp plan, everything but what they controlled. And clearly you had sold it to somebody. How did that work? And it took a long time to change the mindset that, okay, if you believe it's impossible, guess how you're going to act? You're going to act like it's impossible. And we're in sales. We've got to take responsibility for our time, our actions. And it's too often I hear, oh, my manager wants me to do this or that. And it's like, okay, great. But is that getting you the results that you want? If it isn't, then you have to do something different. Because if their activity doesn't work, it's your fault, not theirs. And managers, you've got to support your reps and figure out what works and quit blaming them or thinking that they're lazy. You pick up the phone. You pick up the keyboard. You give it a shot. You take a couple of accounts that they have worked on and failed and see what you can do. What I do, because people in the course come to me with the hardest of the hard. And we sit down on one-on-ones and office hours. One-on-ones or 30-minute Zoom calls with me. There's no limit to them. I'm not available 24/7. I'm a human being. But I try and help people as much as possible. They're all recorded and put in the class so you can hear how other people are doing it. And pretty much for every persona, there's 10 of them in there. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's a start. You can see what other people are doing and building off of it. And there's so many people in the course that have never sold that are just crushing it now, filling up their calendar with great meetings, getting in and closing the largest deals. Listen to the one-on-ones. They're all huge deals. And we're all talking about preventing the bad stuff from happening and making sure the good stuff happens. Before you go, make sure you're checking out the other 2 podcasts, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, and the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. I'll see you next time.